Your entire life is haunted by a single number. You see it in your equations, you dream about it in your sleep, and you become convinced that this number holds the key to the soul of the universe. For Nobel laureate Wolfgang Pauli, the number was 137. He spent decades trying to decode its meaning, only for the universe to deliver a final, terrifying irony. In 1958, Pauli was rushed to a hospital in Zurich. As he was wheeled into his room, he looked at the door, turned to his assistant, and said, "I will never leave this place." The number on that door? 137. Wolfgang Pauli was not a man prone to superstition. He was known as the Whip of God because of his brutal, cold-blooded scientific rigor. He was a perfectionist who could dismantle a colleague's theory with a single sentence. This was the man who predicted the existence of the neutrino and gave us the Pauli exclusion principle, the very rule that explains why matter is solid. But there was another side to Pauli, a side that felt the universe was glitching around him. His colleagues joked about the Pauli effect, the strange phenomenon where complex laboratory equipment would spontaneously explode or break the moment Pauli walked into the room. It was funny until it wasn't. Pauli began to feel that the boundary between the human mind and the physical world was thinner than science dared to admit. And at the center of that boundary sat a mathematical ghost, the number 137. Why 137? In physics, it's known as the fine structure constant, or alpha. It is the number that determines how light interacts with matter. If you change it by even a fraction, atoms would fly apart and stars would never ignite. But what drove Pauli mad was that 137 is a dimensionless number. It doesn't matter if you use kilograms, meters, or seconds, the ratio remains exactly the same. Pauli became obsessed with the idea that 137 wasn't just a constant of physics, but a bridge between the quantum world and a human psyche. He felt that this number was a piece of the cosmic code that we weren't meant to see yet. He famously said, "When I die, my first question to the devil will be, why 137? Little did he know, he wouldn't have to wait for the afterlife to get his answer. The mystery deepened when Pauli suffered a personal breakdown and sought help from the legendary psychologist Carl Jung. What followed was one of the most bizarre collaborations in the history of thought. Jung and Pauli spent years discussing synchronicity, the idea that events can be connected by meaning rather than cause and effect. Pauli shared his dreams with Jung, hundreds of them, and many of them were centered on complex geometric patterns and inevitably the number 137. He began to see the number as a primal image, a mathematical archetype that linked the structure of the atom to the structure of the human soul. For Pauli, 137 was no longer just a coefficient in a textbook. It was a looming presence, a mathematical entity that was watching him. By 1958, the obsession had reached its breaking point. Pauli was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer, a swift and brutal disease. On December 5th, he was taken to the Red Cross Hospital in Zurich. As the orderlies pushed his stretcher down the hallway, Pauli was seen frantically looking at the room numbers. When they stopped in front of 137, Pauli's face went pale. He knew. He told his assistant, Charles Enns, that the coincidence was too perfect, too deliberate. The very number that had defined his career, his dreams, and his secret fears had finally manifested in the physical world to claim him. He didn't see it as a coincidence. He saw it as the universe closing a circuit. He lived for 10 days in that room, surrounded by the number he could never explain, before passing away on December 15th. Wolfgang Colli died in room 137, but the mystery he left behind is more alive than ever. Today, we have measured alpha to 10 decimal places, but we are no closer to knowing why it is that specific value. Was Pauli's death the ultimate synchronicity, or was it the final Pauli effect, where reality itself broke in his presence? We may never know if 137 is a message or a coincidence, but as long as that number sits at the heart of our equations, the ghost of Wolfgang Pauli will be there, standing in the doorway of a room we aren't yet ready to enter.
Subscribe my channel for future videos. Thank you.